Jane Holton joins us now from Melbourne. Jane, good morning to you. Vaccine passports, a good idea?
Well, I think it's a great idea. Being able to have an easy record on your phone of whether or not you've been vaccinated, also to tell you what vaccine you had, I think is a fantastic initiative. And the Service New South Wales app, which of course about 4 million people have downloaded, I've got it on my phone, will make that really easy for people.
What kind of venues?
Of course she thinks it's a great idea. You know what? Maybe it is a good idea, guys. Maybe. Not really, but anyways, let's continue.
Could this apply in?
Well, I think the most important thing that we're all going to worry about is when people come in and out of the country. Certainly, employers and others are saying that they don't necessarily think you need to be vaccinated to come into the workplace, and that's right, unless, of course, you're working in a hospital.
Okay, so let's just break this down quickly because she's gone through this very fast. So we already knew international travel was going to be one, and I don't know if she's mentioned it yet or later on, but they also say if you get caught overseas, you might be at risk of not being able to come home without a vaccine. And now we currently have 40,000 Australians still stranded overseas that have been scrambling to get home since, last year. And the inference here is that these returning Australians that don't get in before the time they implement this policy would actually be required to be vaccinated to return to Australia. Now, that's ludicrous in my mind. They also mentioned whether or not employers it'd be mandatory with employers. She goes, look, don't know, but maybe healthcare workers and hospital workers, right? Which I think we already know healthcare workers are going to be down the line. But let's continue on. Let's listen to what she has to say, because we haven't even gotten to the part that we're going to be really breaking down tonight yet. So let's continue.
And of course, aged care remains a question about whether you're going to need to be vaccinated. But actually having that ready record, just in case you get asked, I think is, as I said, a fantastic idea.
Look, some people are going to have a real problem with it. I think it was we saw in Israel, even in Israel, some people have a problem with the green passport.
We've talked about Israel
over there and going
very bad over
venues. What would you say? What's the answer there? Because I mean, it's not an easy answer.
No, it's not, and we're learning about this as we go along. We've all got to figure out when we're going to need to demonstrate whether we've been vaccinated, in what contexts. So I think everyone should stay a bit calm. We need to learn actually from what's happened overseas, and then we need to get the best public health advice about where that level of protection is going to be important. But as we've discussed before, the most important thing is to get as many people in our community vaccinated so that we can protect the people who are vulnerable, our elderly, people who are immune compromised. And then knowing that we've got that security, that so many people have been vaccinated, means we can go back to life as we all want to live it.
Now, let's just break this down just a little bit, okay? So, first of all, she's like, look, we'll have to make a decision on venues at some point. Now, what I said before was, I don't think they're going to throw the whole kitchen sink at us at the very beginning, because if they did, there would be too much pushback. Australians would not be having it one bar, and I don't think there's any way that they would possibly be able to get the general public consensus. So they just come out the gate and say, you can only go to the grocery store unless you've been vaccinated. Now, they could still do that, but she's also mincing her words a bit. She's like, venues. Yeah, look, we'll make a decision on that later on. Blah, 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 blah. And we know the Australian government's already said they'll make it as mandatory as possible. And she said, well, look, we need to make sure we get the broader community, most of the community, vaccinated. That's got to be our security blanket to not just protect our elderly, but also get back to normal. Now, it's funny she says that, because also our federal health minister has already acknowledged that, and not just him, Daniel Andrews and Brett Sutton have acknowledged that even once the broader community is vaccinated, we'll still be doing lockdowns, still wearing masks, and all those other restrictions, which begs the question, so what's the point of the jab? So that's a question that, like, you should really be asking yourself, what's the point of the jab? And that's the question that you should really point out to people that for some reason think this whole thing's a great idea. But anyways, it's just interesting how she said the security of getting most Australians, because they seem to think most of us are just going to take it. But now let's move forward to this next part, because this next part's